Good evening, everyone. Special Tuesday night edition. Special because of my guest. We have the emir of the Infinitales, the king of the Chronicles, Chris.
Hey, how's it going?
Well, thanks for dropping by.
Yeah, thanks for
Um,
having me.
so I have seen Infinitales making the rounds for uh, quite a while now. For I don't know,
Oh
probably
boy.
what 2 years or so.
Yeah, this so the first book was crowdfunded back in 2021, and
Okay,
by God, it was like pulling teeth to get book two out. But it's a beefy boy, so it'll be worth it.
excellent. Um, so how is the transition going from first timer, sort of not knowing what you're doing, to okay, I think I got a handle on this? Um, what's changed in terms of making the book, getting the word out there?
I would say what is it? I've grown older, but not wiser. No, I don't know. It's weird because after the first book launched, I pretty much I think I did everything you weren't supposed to do with
Okay.
that first book. So it's like I think I've was that expression, a lesson learned hard is a lesson learned well. Um, unfortunately, yeah, like because it's taken so long from book one to book two, I feel like I'm like re-virginized. Like I feel like I'm back, back at the beginning because all that momentum, it's hard to keep people interested when there's like almost a 4 year gap between the books.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Out of curiosity, what took 4 years? Was it did you want to get all the work together first, or there was a certain ailment that was going around at the time, as I recall?
Yeah, it was a comedy of failures. It basically it started with it started with the ailment, and then it turned into other issues, especially as prices started climbing
Ugh.
on production. And yeah, I mean, I I didn't want to lose my house, so I kind of
Yeah,
slowed on certain things, and yeah, it I don't know. It's weird how the weather, the winds change in comics. Like I definitely feel it's much different now here in 2025 than it was back in 2021.
that's what everyone's been telling me. I had Peter Gilmore on
Hmm.
uh, la- the end of last year, and he was telling me like he's so glad he started in 2018 as opposed to doing it even last year.
Yeah, yeah, oof, yeah. Man, I went to the Granite State Comic Con last year. It was in September. It's it's like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Comic Con because that's
Hmm.
where like Peter Eastman and Laird were from, that in New Hampshire. So they made a big deal out of that. I'm like, oh right, I love Ninja Turtles. I'll go to this, and it just I don't know. Like I it's weird because I like the how like business 101, know your market.
Hmm.
Like you can't make a product unless you have a customer for it. Otherwise, it's just a hobby. And I don't know. I was out there and it was like I got people like in their 50s and 60s that loved it, and then I got the people that were really really young, but like the people in their 20s and 30s wanted nothing to do with it. I was like,
Mm,
ouch.
wow.
Yeah, I don't know if it was just New Hampshire, but like that was really weird. Like a lot of love for the capes and tights, not so much for like the fantasy stuff. Lord of the Rings, what's that? Like,
Well, I mean, everything has like peaks and valleys when you get into the popularity of certain
Mm.
things. I have to say, I'm a little shocked that Capes and Types would be making a comeback,
Oh
just
yeah.
because we had like 10 good years of Marvel movies. We
Mhm.
did not have 10 good years of Marvel books. So eh, I don't know. Maybe there's just an appetite. But to me, it seems like people would be turned off and wanting to find other genres to check into.
Yeah, yeah. And one thing I was talking with some of my artist friends. One thing that we noticed was it's really hard to push new properties in markets that are more interested in established brands. Like as an
Yes.
artist, you're more successful drawing pictures of Batman or some other established hero than you
Mhm.
are of creating like original content.
Yeah, that kind of makes me wonder, sort of like you're saying, if it's all us old farts who really like, those, I don't know, who want to see yet another sketch of Wolverine.
Yeah.
Um, but like, what's going on with the kids? Because they're perfectly happy with manga, they're
Yeah.
perfectly happy with the stuff that Scholastic is putting out. So, what do you think it is that, is I don't know. I can understand why they would not be into the big two and what
Mhm.
they've been putting out. But what do you think it is that American comics of different makes, like what do you think it is that is sort of, I don't want to say driving younger people away, but not connecting with younger people.
Well, I don't want to get too political, but I think there's definitely a social component
Hmm.
where a lot of creators, especially in the big two, kind of use their medium as like a basically a lectern to give their sermons.
Sure.
And if you're not interested in buying their sermon, you get like it's not a matter of I'm disinterested, it's a matter of I'm repelled by a message that I dislike, and I see that with kids where they don't want to be talked down to, essentially,
Hmm.
and a lot of Western media now, especially in the big corporate sector, is very it talks down to people, like it lectures you, it
Yes.
tells you this is what you think, this is what should be good, this is what should be bad, instead of presenting a neutral state and allowing you to derive your own conclusions from it.
Do you think that that's changing at all? Uh, just let's say from an arbitrary time frame of maybe November last year. Do you think it's changing?
Yeah, I hope so. I hope that the tides are turning, because I'll tell you, that's the only reason why I got into the comic book stuff was, dude, it got real depressing when every one of my hobbies told me they didn't want me, they didn't want my business anymore.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like, wait, what? Like, what do you mean? Oh, you should like this, but I don't. Oh, well, then you're an istophobe or whatever. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what? Imagine doing that at an ice cream parlor. Like, oh, you only like vanilla ice cream? Bigot. You know, like, sorry.
I don't know. I've heard of those kind of things.
Oh, man.
I used to live in Los Angeles, so
Oh, right in the
it's
Mecca.
yeah,
I'm sorry.
but it's okay. I don't anymore. So
Yeah.
um,
Whew.
huh. But do you think there's any hope for comics? Like, what do you think it would take for, not necessarily from the big two,
Mm.
but either like pure indies, sort of like what you're doing and what a lot of us who end up on this channel are doing, just like bootstraps and skin of your teeth type stuff, even to like slightly larger publishers like maybe a Dark Horse.
Mm.
Um, what do you think we need to do in order
Mm.
to like connect with younger people? Because the no younger people thing is what concerns me the most out of the
Yeah.
whole comic industry.
Yeah, well, like when I was at the Comic Con, I had a manga edition of my book, and a lot of young kids bought it.
Oh,
And and I don't say when I'm dating myself. I'm old. When I'm saying like an 18-year-old is like young, but like
that's young.
that. Well, like not for children. But you know what I mean? Like my book, it's got violence in it. It's got Irish poetry. But yeah, I think a lot of it is, from an economic perspective. When I did research for the manga book, I was like, I'm not just going to slap this term on there, even though I'm not Japanese. Sorry, I missed it. It would be manhwa because I'm Korean. But I looked up a bunch of books. I went on Amazon and bought like My Hero Academia, the Vinland Saga. Like I
Hmm.
have a library now of manga, and I'm reading them, and I'm like, well, what are they doing that I'm not getting from the Western books? And it reminds me of the World War II analogy of the Sherman tank versus the Tiger tank,
Uh-huh.
um, where manga is a victory by attrition, where I could spend, it's probably like now 8, 9, $10. I could get like a 500-page book for like $10,
Yeah.
like one volume. Whereas $10 for a Western like graphic novel, or what, especially like our indie stuff, yeah, that's not going to go very far, like, so I think there's an economic component to it. But to go back to the Sherman analogy, I think what it is we're only seeing the good stuff from Japan. Like
Hmm.
they've thrown everything at the wall to see what stuck, and what stuck, they put a little bow on it and shipped it over to the West.
Yep.
So there's a lot of that fail fast mentality, and it shows in the quality of the book. Like I got two different versions of a Vinland Saga book, and they were drawn differently, and you can see which
Oh.
one was like the newer version, because like it looked more like digital art,
Hmm.
whereas the hardcover one I got, it's like it looks like almost like a Pigma pen, and it's kind of shaky. And yeah, the quality just it's not like they're not going for the white glove premium quality content. They're going for, I want to give you content. I want to give you
Yep.
500 pages, a full, satisfying story. And we don't get that from the West. We get the 300 variant covers and the, here, good luck trying to see this run end because the character was bad, or, some other aspect where it wasn't selling, and suddenly we've got like 6 different starting series for a Marvel character or a DC character.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. There's so many avenues that aren't going well
No.
in Western comics right now. For me, one of them is the price, which I don't know if you've seen um, Peter Samedi's
Oh yeah.
newest uh, crowdfunder. He's trying to fund his own in-house printer, which he was supposed to be on tomorrow, but he will be on next week, Wednesday.
Ah.
Um, but I mean, the thing is, I was looking at the price points
Mhm.
for a 20-page book, black and white. It was only like $1.01 to print, and I'm
Nice.
like, oh my god, the profit margin on that are awesome.
Yes.
I mean, to me, that's one like distribution and price are sort of the two biggest things for me. The
Mhm.
price being, comics were always the best when it was they were kind of disposable. Number
Yeah.
one, and number two, they're impulse buys.
Mhm.
Like if for me, I think more people would be willing to drop money on a comic if it's like half the price of a cup of Starbucks,
Mhm.
rather than um, what's a DC title these days, like $5.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's if you want to collect any number of comics, like maybe you can get one a month, but once you start getting into like $25, like, well, you could get, okay, 5 comics a month, or you could get Netflix, the good
Yeah.
version.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and also as an indie creator, I get the double whammy,
Yeah.
because even though Samedi is doing this awesome thing, trying to crowdfund this like this project, like nobody else is really doing that. Like, and there's always that quality element too, where I'm not saying that newsprint is inferior. Pure,
Hmm.
there's actually purists that say the newsprint holds color better and print better.
Hmm.
But heck, I worked for a newspaper for 6.5 years, man. That was flexographic printing was my jam. But it's really hard as an indie creator to get kind of that bulk pricing or that mass production
Yeah.
deal. So you do have to overcharge. And I hate that. Like, for example, my manga edition, 180 pages. Okay. So it's book 1 and book
Nice.
2 mashed together. And it's in black and white, unfortunately. But I wanted to get it down to the $5 price point. I was like, that's my sweet number. And every printer within the continental United States could not get it down below that. So
Yep.
I have to charge double that, unfortunately, $10. I was like, ah, like that's gonna hurt
Yeah.
my sales. But as a backer, as a avid reader myself, like I think it was more frustrating just to be like, well, what the hell, like $10 for. But if I can get it on Amazon, I could probably drop it down to like $5.
Oh, That's not bad. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. The price point, y- I wish you could do more with newsprint, like outside of Pete's stuff.
Mhm.
Could you even find someone who does newsprint who's willing to make a book for you? Like, man, that it's tough to even get people to pay attention to you when you're so small.
Oh my God, yeah, it's like shouting in a well, waiting for I don't know, man. Like it's so hard to get any kind like anything other than apathy these days, and it's weird because if I got negative feedback, I would appreciate it in the sense that like I'm a UX designer by my day job, so I
Hmm.
thrive off of I thrive off of negative people complaining about what I'm working on because it helps me better the product and we make more money. But like when you don't get any feedback and then the feedback you do get is positive, but it doesn't equate to sales, you're like, what like you don't know
Yeah,
where to go. Like does the book suck and they're just being nice or like
yeah. It's yeah, yeah, that is the problem. I actually used to do book reviews on
Mhm.
the channel, but it never went well for me. Um,
Yeah.
because like it would be like if I said 20 nice things about a book and one thing I said was, I didn't like this part so much.
Mhm.
That's exactly what I would hear from people. Like, why are you hating on the book? And it's like, oh, come on.
You can't
Um,
win.
like I understand when you're in the indie space, you don't want to hear anything negative, but like if everything is all rainbows and unicorn farts, like are people going to trust those kind of reviews?
Yeah.
So
Well, that and like it doesn't help you fix your product,
yeah.
Like how do you grow as a creator and as a producer if you're being told, yeah, don't change, you don't need to do anything. It's kind of like the girl boss or the feminist slant in our media where they're like, you know, Captain Marvel's biggest flaw was her own self-doubt. She was perfect all along. And it's like that's not a real thing. you know?
Yeah. Uh, oh well.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so Infinitales.
Mhm,
So you mentioned you got a 180-page graphic novel, which first of all is awesome because as much as I love floppies,
mhm.
I think unless you're going to sell a bunch of them, like graphic novels are kind of the preferred medium for 2025.
Mm.
Um, what tell us a bit about the world, the characters, because looking through it, there's a lot of development that went into this.
Oh boy. Yeah, so this started like long ago there was a fat dyslexic 12-year-old who was invited to the Pelham Public Library to learn how to play Dungeons and Dragons. So that's my origin story. I started this back in 1990 as a
Ooh.
kind of like it was initially I was invited to the public library to basically get out of trouble or stay out of trouble, and we were playing Dungeons and Dragons there, and I got bit by that the arrogance of youth. I can do that, I could totally make my own,
Yep.
because we didn't have all the books, and it was frustrating because somebody would always check out like the Dungeon Master's Guide or the Player's Handbook or something, so we'd have to like make stuff up, and it got real frustrating. So I thought,
Hmm.
well, screw it, I'll just make my own. So I started making my own, and lo and behold, when I got into high school a few years later, the high school that I went to, yeah, Pelham High, man, you guys, I feel bad for you. We got treated like criminals. We had to have 140 hours of community service in order to go on to
Ooh.
the next year. And if that works fine when you're like 13, 14 or whatever in freshman year, but when you have a job, it's suddenly like, what do I work pro bono? What's going on here?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I the librarian at the public library, I mean, she heard all about this stuff, and she's like, you know what, I will hook you up with whatever community service hours you need from here until graduation if you babysit these kids, and you basically you can use them as your guinea pigs, play testers all you want. Just make sure that they're not tearing down the shelves or swinging from the rafters. Just keep them in line. I'm like, okay, fine. And that's when I started kind of beta testing out my Infinitale. story at the time, or game. At the time, it was just called Chris's Game because we, I was so we had this mock Dungeons and Dragons game going, and I'll tell you, man, nothing prepares you for life like the brutal, cutting honesty of like a 10-year-old who doesn't give a crap about your feelings.
Uh-huh.
So we honed those rough edges real quick. Because if you lost their interest, then suddenly the kind-hearted librarian that's like, I don't want them tearing down shelves and swinging from the rafters because you lost their attention. Guess what? They're tearing down the shelves and swinging from the rafters. So I have to keep this chaotic bunch at the table and interested. And I ended up doing it for about 4 years for one group, and later 6 years for another. And so there were two different groups.
Wow.
And we ended up at one point when the recession hit. That's how long ago it was, back in the 90s. But I ended up first going over to my dad's duplex. So a bunch of kids from the neighbor, like these random kids, would show up at my dad's on the weekend to play Dungeons and Dragons in the back room. And like my sister gave me all sorts of hell for that. But then we ended up, and here's the weird thing, because this was around the height of the Satanic Panic.
Uh-huh.
Our Catholic rectory priest, he's like, you know what? We have a bingo hall that isn't used on Saturdays. You can bring the kids there, just. And I'm like, it's Dungeons and Dragons. Like, this is like Satan's chess game, like what? And he's like, no, he sat in once. He's like, I've seen enough. This looks good. You guys are good. Fine. Gave me the key, the whole, like, just don't vandalize the drink machines and clean up the, pick up the tables afterwards. So we had like full run of this bingo hall to ourselves. And we ended up for about 10 years, actually a little less than 10, like 9 something, playing this game. And I ended up going off to university, and I kind of put all the stuff away in my little storage totes or whatever. And then I ended up, I got a job over in video game development. So I flew over to California, lived in Orange County for a while, lived up in Silicon Valley for a while. Hell, I even moved over to Tokyo. I was in Japan for a while. And then the whole time, I unfortunately paid to ship these boxes of paper with me. And one day, I started realizing how volatile the gaming industry was after spending a decade in it, and I was getting exhausted by it. Like, I was like, every few years you'd have to like basically pack up and move. And La Vie Boheme wasn't exactly it lost its charm after about like the 8th year, 9th year. So I ended up moving back to New England here, and I got a job completely like swapped out, leveraged my skills in UX, and went into a completely different career. I'm in cybersecurity now.
Oh.
And and I was like, I felt kind of creatively constipated. It was kind of depressing because this was around 2014, where I was like, all my hobbies are telling me they don't want me as a customer anymore. I'm working in a job that's not creative in any way, shape, or form. So, what am I going to do? What am I going to do with, for a creative outlet? And I was talking to one of my buddies who was an engineer over at Blizzard at the time. And he's like, dude, you got to make like your game, like your tabletop role playing game. Like, you go on Kickstarter, those guys are making bank. So why don't you do that? I'm like, well, I don't know if anybody would be real jazzed, just out of the blue, if I just said, hey, here's my, something that I did in the 90s. I got to refine the hell out of it because there's been a lot of good changes in role playing games since the 90s.
Yep.
And I was like, well, maybe I could do something else. Like, maybe I could like, make like an animated series, because we used to have the Newgrounds movies, like Ninja Toe or whatever, like the little ninja, like all these like really awesome cartoons that were done in Flash. And I was like, oh, I could totally get that. So I started trying to work on animation, and I took a screenwriting course, went down to Boston, did the whole Project Greenlight lectures, which, by the way, were awesome, dude. Like, say what you will about Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, but like, they know how to write. Like, they may not know how to act, but like, they know how to write. So it was nice hearing, like, it was nice getting like encouragement from people that, are a lot more important than you. I'm like, wow, I'm a nobody. This guy, wow, that's actually pretty cool. But I was looking at that, and then I got the reality check from, he's like, dude, this will never be made. Like, your budget, like, this is insane. Like, you would pitch this to a production company, and you could actually just hear like the of their of their budget, you know. So I was like,
Mhm.
well, what the hell am I going to do? And he's like, well, you ever think about writing a novel? I'm like, I don't know, maybe. And then my engineer friend said, well, why don't you do this? Like, people were really excited about World of Warcraft before the game even came out. And it was because there was already a bunch of material that introduced players into the world. You know, you had the previous RTS games, you had the novels, the comics, or whatever. Why don't you do that for yours before you try your tabletop game? And I was like, all right, there we go. That's my entry into comics. And that started in 2014. And I've been working on it. I have an entire 10-book planned series. And unfortunately, when I wrote it all out, I have to convert a lot of it from screenplay into comic book scripting. And I think the biggest pain has been chopping it up, because what this story was all the chronicled game sessions from back in the 1990s when we were playing as kids, you know. And I'm trying to make it, you know, it's kind of like the Vox Machina thing, you know,
Mhm.
or Record of Lodos War, but like, I don't know. It's my, you know, 30 years of work, and you know, I'm really proud of it. I really like the world. I like the characters, and I kind of cheated in the sense that, you know, I'm not Jack Nicholson's character in As Good as It Gets, you know, how he writes women so well. I actually had you know, female players. So they, like, I cheated and kind of just wrote what they did, rather than trying to personify, you know, something I'm not. You know, it's like George Lucas trying to write romance in Attack of the Clones. But yeah, that's where we are now. The 10 books, I'm trying to chop them up. I chopped the first one, you know, Second Genesis. That was book 1 of the War of the Trees, and that was 54 pages. And when I got to book 2, I had it at 60 pages, and I sent it to a couple of proofreaders, and the feedback I got was, holy crap, this sucks. You got to change a whole bunch of stuff. The pacing's off, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, oh, damn.
Ouch.
Yeah. I don't want to follow up with a craptacular book. So I went back to the drawing board, and I moved some things around. So there's a little bit of like better peaks and troughs in the pacing. And I ended up doubling the originally intended book size. So it was supposed to be 60 pages, went to 120 pages. So book 2 will be 120 pages. And at the time, I was having some problems with the original art team. They're just really taking, like, it was like my book wasn't a priority to them. So I was like, oh man.
Pain.
Yeah, doesn't that suck where you're like, you send out an email and then like 3 weeks later, you still haven't gotten a reply back, and you're like, what?
Yeah. You just hope to get some work at the end of the day, but man.
Yeah.
At least I wasn't making a comic.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's, I mean, dude, it sucks being hashtag just the writer, but I ended up contacting another team. A couple of my friends were like, dude, what about these guys? These guys will help you out. So this husband and wife team, Barbusco Studios, said, oh, dude, we'll totally do this. And they hammered out book 2 as well, but it was done in a very different style. It was done more like the European style Bendis Designé. And I was like, I like it, but I kind of don't want to make it inconsistent. So I pulled teeth and got the original team to finish up the second book. So we have the second book in its original art team, the alternate art edition done by the Barbuscos, and then while this was all going on, I was researching the manga edition, and I was like, okay, I'm going to conduct an experiment. Which of these 3 gets backed the most? That'll be the future of this series. Yeah, kind of a gamble. But
yeah, for sure.
And then on top of that, I ended up one of my friends who's an artist. She agreed to start working on some book 3 stuff. So we're also going to have that third book done by her in whatever format the other, you know, of those 3 formats that are being backed in this campaign. That'll determine which one we pursue book 3 with.
Wow, very cool.
Sweet.
So you know, there's a real danger in turning a D&D campaign into any sort of how would you say, entertainment or literary device. Part of the problem is like the you had to be there
Mhm.
problem, where it's like this such and such a thing was funny because it happened at this one time with these people. So like,
Yep.
how do you? What was your process to go through and like sift through all the debris of what, like 10 years, to find those gems that can go together in a coherent storyline?
Oh boy, yeah, you dude, that's a great question because there is about I'm probably presenting, from an abstract perspective, I'm presenting probably about 5 pages out of 1,000 pages that I've accrued of notes.
Hmm.
Um, and I mean, there's been a lot of garbage, like, because it's a lot of insider stuff, a lot of stuff that if you had to be there, you wouldn't get it if you weren't sitting at that table. And the idea is that, like, when I was developing the Infinitale role playing game system, I didn't want to just be D&D, 2.0, or like what
Hmm.
Paizo did, where they went to Pathfinder, and it's essentially they just took the 2.5 or the 3.5 rules and said, look, we're not going to go the mechanical route that 4 is. We've got our own stuff, and we're going to improve on that. I kind of I mean, I don't know if it was to my benefit or detriment, but I was a dumb kid. So part of my I guess one of the pillars of developing this role playing game was to make it as accessible as possible. And especially for a dyslexic 12-year-old at the time who was like, I gotta learn this stuff. I gotta figure out why this works. I gotta figure out why people enjoy XYZ, whatever. And I when I developed the game, I thought, well, what could I do as a novelty that nobody else was doing at the time? And then White Wolf came out and completely destroyed me. But I wanted to create like the whole reason why it's called Infinitale is because it's a portmanteau of infinite and tale, and the idea is that it's an ongoing story, and that nobody really puts story mechanics into a game because or I should say, when you're playing the game, you get no incentives for caring about your character. You're just, yeah, it's an avatar, it's a chess piece, it's a
Hmm.
pawn. Well, this actually, in the Infinitale system, it actually builds upon character acting structure. The 3 acts or the 5 acts. The rising action, the falling act, like all the beats. And the way that the system is handled is it doesn't really work well as modules, in that with a module you can metagame. You can jump in and be
Yeah.
like, oh dude, I bought this book. I know exactly where the Sargasso Sea is, and I know exactly where the Savage Coastline, all that stuff. In the Infinitale game, it's very modular and broken up, where there's never really the same story told. It's a bunch of cards that represent each of those plot points. You have scenes that are filled with characters and encounters and plot points, and they lead to other scenes who are filled with characters, and so on. And the narrator or the game master is is allowed to go any which way. And what I did was, when I was building the system, is I looked at stories that, this is pre-Google. I looked at stories that were in old folklore, stuff like the Kalevala, which is the Finnish folklore, or
Hmm.
Snorri Sturluson's the Walsung saga, the Icelandic stuff,
Uh-huh.
or hell, even Tolkien to some degree. The Ring of the Nibelung, like all these ancient stories that they made operas out of or whatever. And I was like, well, what would happen if you mix and match them? And at various points, and it turned into scenarios where it was almost like collaborative storytelling, and they didn't realize they were telling stories, because we've been kind of led to believe that storytelling is just narrative. It's
Hmm.
people acting stuff out or whatever, and it's not always that. It's storytelling can be a variety of things, including how a mechanic works, or how
Yeah.
something is achieved, how an obstacle is overcome. And that worked really well, especially for a bunch of ADD addled kids that, God, I can only imagine how horrible that would have been in the age of the iPhone. But yeah, these kids were glued to it because they would get mechanically rewarded for doing it. We even had, it was a joke for a while, but we had like the Emmy of the evening.
Uh-huh.
And we had characters that acted things out. And part of the game was, you weren't just a murder hobo, or you weren't just doing I'm going to go into the dungeons and beat up a bunch of orcs. It's like, well, why? Like, how'd the orcs get there? And it starts growing from there. And I think that worked really well when it translated to the comic book, because we didn't have the, if there's any girls there, I want to do them. It was like, is that what, what kind of character did you want to be? Oh, I want to be like Han Solo. Okay, well then you're the smarmy, dashing scoundrel or whatever. Well, what would the scoundrel do in this situation? Oh, he'd probably tell her to go F up. Okay, well then go tell her to F up and see what happens. Yeah, like stuff like that. And I think it translated really well into the static story, essentially, the comics. But at the end of the day, it wasn't an on-rails game. It wasn't the extreme of the sandbox, and it wasn't the extreme of the on-rails game. But players were allowed to express themselves, and I hope I faithfully captured all of that. And I hope people actually like these characters and not be like, oh god, that's just some dork at a table.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think you're right. In gaming, there's always the sandboxes versus rails debate.
Mm-hmm.
I've never understood why it has to be binary like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
mm-hmm.
why can't players be allowed to, more or less do what they want? But there's story reasons. Well, maybe even story reasons is not a good term, but like there are compelling reasons which have to do with the history of the place, or other things that are going on in the place, which would want to keep them somewhere, and they sort of insinuate themselves into the events of history, thereby making it feel like it's a story.
Yeah. Well, do you remember those old Navy commercials with Keith David? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, one of them started with Keith David's intro, where he said, "If somebody wrote a story about your life, would anybody want to read it?" And it's like that kind of hit me. Like as a kid, when I heard that, I was like, "That's a really good point." Like for a game, somebody, if you were hearing a bunch of these dorks talking about the game that we're working on, and they're talking about stuff in it, would anybody give a crap? And if the answer is yes, then it's like, dude, you got it, man. You hit gold.
Yeah. No, and I think that's an interesting way to look at it. And you're right. Obviously, the more things kind of coalesce into like events in a timeline, whether they were intended to be or not, I think it's much easier to translate over into a comic or a novel or something that is very clearly mostly linear.
Yeah. Well, so when are you familiar at all with Plato's allegory of the cave?
Yes.
Okay. So that was kind of my starting point for the War of the Trees. I had read something in the Mabinogi, which was the Cadgatho, which means War of the Trees. And from there, I started backtracking and seeing what led to that event. And I started pulling out pieces of that. And I figured if I'm going to rip stuff off, I might as well rip off the obscure stuff instead of like what happens where like Dungeons and Dragons just rips off Tolkien and then everybody rips off Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
I wanted to see what Tolkien ripped off. And, so I went into that stuff. The Mabinogi was a Welsh, it's kind of like the Welsh mythology. And, it had this concept of, that there were these people on the island. And when I say Welsh, I'm also referring to a lot of the Hibernian or like the Irish myths. There were these people that came before us that were not good people. And they kind of ruled over everybody with an iron fist, these giant titanic overlords. The Judeo-Christians called them Nephilim. The Norse called them Jotnar. The Irish called them Fovera, and that was where I kind of based kind of our enemies, our big baddies. They're all based off of the Fomorians or the Fovera. Yeah. Imagine those guys trying to tell you they're God when they're about 100 feet tall and can stomp you. I'll be like, yeah, okay.
I believe you.
Yeah.
So getting over to Espera a little
Mhm.
bit. So how did Espera start? Was it map first, or was it you just sort of like had a bunch of areas that eventually coalesced into a continent?
So the world was always in service of the game and the story. And originally Esperia was called Foithla, which is the name of the continent. But beyond the borders of the Tiori Gothen, or the land of the tree in Irish, that was almost not fleshed out at all when we initially started the story. We started very small. We wanted to make sure that, when I was building this world, I didn't want to inundate the audience or the players with a bunch of stuff that was meaningless, or like the 7th century of the, like if you ever read the Silmarillion, like,
Hmm.
if you're trying to read the Hobbit, there's no need to read the Silmarillion. You don't need
Yeah.
to know any of that stuff. So I started very small. I would say Tiri Gothen was the original kind of game world, and then from there it expanded out. And it was funny because I had a friend who had a bunch of poster boards, and when we were doing this in my dad's back room, he would make posters of every one of the sovereignties, and it eventually covered the entire wall. Like, it looked like we were in DEFCON 1.
Hmm.
And yeah, it started pockets by pockets. We didn't. When I designed the world, it wasn't like one gargantuan thing with this like rich tapestry of history from the onset. It was a very small location, and then we just slowly grew out from there.
Hmm. So you've got 10 books planned.
Mhm.
So is this, do you see like a definite end, or is this more like, the Viking sagas that just kind of keep going and going? And
Well,
it's like, well, I know 10, and then after that, I'll figure out what's going on.
yeah. So there's actually the games themselves followed 2 sagas, and when I say saga, I mean like a series of books, or a series of games. So the War of the Trees saga, the 10-book collection, is kind of the origin of the Aelvar people, and how they kind of rediscovered their origins with magic, and basically how they almost or possibly got extincted. I know that's a bad word to say, but like they were possibly wiped off the game board completely. And there's another world, and we learn about that throughout the War of the Trees, that the world that they're on, Esperia, isn't what it seems to be. Like, everything that they've been told was a lie.
Hmm.
And the other saga, called Empires of Ruin, is about the world of Munadea, which is the game world where the game takes place, and where the heroes, or I should say, where the humans reside. And Munadea is kind of reminiscent of like, I would say it starts in antiquity, like classic era world, and it by the time things happen where the immigrants come in and introduce magic to this world, it's like probably the high mid or the late Middle Ages.
Hmm. Interesting.
And yeah, you have
Mhm.
2 very contrasting forces here. You've got chaos and magic versus order and like the mundane natural world.
Uh, will we get to see who wins, or will they have to find a new balance?
Yeah, it's kind of like, if I were to say if Infinitale Chronicles was a tragedy or a comedy, I would definitely put it in the tragedy category. It's a multi-generational story, and not everybody that is in the first book survives to the 10th book.
Ooh.
Yeah, a lot of people
Okay.
die.
So stakes are high.
Yeah, yeah, and like, it's a really weird thing, but I was talking with one of the players like a few years back, when I had the first book out, and he's like, "Dude, you're not going to put that one part in." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm totally putting that one part." It's like, "You remember when everybody made fun of me for crying at the table?" And I was like, "Yeah, that was kind of funny." He's like, "No, dude, that was sad. That was really sad." And I'm like, I want to do that. I want that goal. Like, that's my goal, is I want people to cry reading this book. Yeah, like, it sounds weird, but I want
Nice.
emotional resonance.
So, who would you say is your main audience? Traditionally in the West, comic books have been more for, I guess you'd say probably up to like 13, 14 years old. Until the 80s, we started getting some more adult,
Mm,
both in the pornographic and just aimed at adult level reading
mm.
stories. And, the 90s was like a real mix of. Woo. So like where would you say, like, would this fit with like Spider-Man circa 1989, or is this more like Frank Miller, or who who are you aiming this at? I guess I should say.
Yeah. So this is another great question. Thanks, man. Like, I had terrible parents. They never shielded me from any of the stuff. Hell, seriously, I saw a Nightmare on Elm Street when I was like 8 years old. Didn't bother me in the slightest. First time I ever had a nightmare from a movie was the first 5 minutes of Saving Private Ryan. But
Ooh.
yeah, that was weird being an adult having nightmares over a movie. But yeah, that one did it. But when I was trying to figure out, what do I define as as a demographic for this book, I couldn't really gauge it as at the age that the book was originally written in. When I started this, I was 12 years old, and I wouldn't want 12-year-olds to read this. um, I would say this is probably a young adult teen book, but it's not young adult
Okay.
in the sense that there's a female protagonist with two hot guys that are fighting over her. Yeah.
So your audience isn't like a 40-year-old woman.
Honestly, I think a 40-year-old woman would get something out of this.
Really?
In fact, when I did a survey on book one, I one of the questions was, what's your age? And it's anonymous, so nobody needed to lie. And believe it or not, I had a high percentage of women in their 40s and 50s that backed my book. And yeah, a lot of them were in Europe too, which is interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Europeans always throw me off with their comic reading stuff, because graphic novels are a big, maybe big thing is a little over optimistic, but I think the readership in France is pretty high compared to the overall U.S. population,
Oh yeah.
and and they like very interesting stuff. Like westerns sell really well.
Mm.
Like I've heard a lot of, I mean, just like women here, like crime podcasts or like 48 Hours or something. Like French women like those kind of graphic novels. So it's something that like I don't know, I can't like nail down. Like if you ask me, what stuff do Japanese like, I could figure that out. If you ask me like what do Koreans or Chinese like, got it. But for some reason the Europeans throw me for a loop.
Yeah. Well, bandes dessinées are huge in Europe.
Hmm.
And like when I was a young kid learning French, my French class had a whole bunch of those comics like Le Schtroumpfs, the Smurfs,
Oh
and
wow.
Tintin, Asterisk and Obelix. And yeah, it was kind of my intro to that stuff. In fact, I saw when I was a kid, I saw the Smurfs on Saturday morning cartoons,
Hmm.
and it was kind of a weird brand thing where I think my teacher, I think she was smart to put the Smurfs book in there and stuff, because I was like, oh, okay, and I just grabbed it and started reading it, and yeah, mon français est trop mauvais though.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense to me. I wish we had more of that kind of thing for language learning in schools, but
Mm,
it's
yeah,
rough.
yeah, yeah, man. I know. I'm thinking back to my Spanish classes, and it's like they could have totally had like all the Spanish versions of comics, and I would have eaten that stuff up.
um, so 10 books. Are you going to finish all 10 before you release your game?
I'm hoping so. I'm hoping
Oh,
that
okay.
there's enough interest, and clearly, working with Nerium on book three. She's a hell of a lot faster. That we won't be having these 4 year or 3.5 year hiatus between book releases, because I won't be alive by the time the 10th book comes out. So if you know we're hastening the pace, but you know we're not compromising the quality. And it's
Nice.
actually what I'm hoping to do is there's a stretch goal on the campaign. If I can get to a certain number, I'm actually going to release for free to anybody that's backed the physical books the first chapter of book 3. So it's like 36 pages. I think that was what Nerian was saying. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, you're going to get over 150 pages worth of book if we reach the stretch goal and you back one of the 2 color books. And if you back the 180 page manga edition, you're going to get over 200 pages. So
Wow, that's pretty impressive. Do you think larger format books are, or I shouldn't say larger format books, larger page count books are like slowly becoming the new norm in the indie scene?
I hope so, because I'd like to, you know, content is king. And I really like when I get a beefy book because I feel like I get my money's worth out of it. You know, I've spent $30-$40 on like a 24-page floppy,
Ooh.
you know, and it's like, ouch. Like I read it for like 5 minutes and, you know, put it down, put it back in the bag and board and put it on my spinner rack, and then it stays there, you know, and it's,
Yep.
I want the books, you know, I want something where I can sink my teeth into it and, you know, like linger, you know, have it, you know, come back to it. Oh, look, there's where the bookmark is, you know. So
yeah.
man.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm just kind of curious. Like I remember 7-8 years ago, I would say the average indie book I saw was like around 48 pages.
Mhm.
Whereas like now it's pushing up into the 80s for sure.
Mm.
So hopefully
Yeah.
we'll get full-size graphic novels, but it's just hard when you're small to fund that kind of thing, especially if you're not the artist.
Oh God, yeah. This is definitely been a financial lesson. I'll give it that. But you know, part of it is kind of a you know, they're like, oh, you know, you're either in it for the business or it's just a hobby. For me, I just want to make something that 12-year-old me would have been like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing ever. You know,
Yeah.
and if I can't get excited about it, then you know, like how am I supposed to, you know, expect others to? And
Well,
a small floppy, I would just be like, I'll see it you know. Sorry.
yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, unless you for sure were going to release a bunch of those floppies in relatively quick succession. You
Yeah,
know, like
yeah,
floppies worked when you were buying them every month or
yeah,
every other month.
yeah. Or you
Um,
get multiple ones, you know, like King
yeah,
Cryptid there. I bought like 1 through 5 or 1 through 4 and then 5 through 10 or 9 or whatever. And I feel like I get my money's worth out of that because as soon as I finish one, I just go right on to the next one.
yeah, exactly. Like I could definitely see, you know, a strategy where, let's say, um, like I've always thought the high-low business strategy is the way to go.
Mhm,
Whereas you have like the low would be making a book for the absolute cheapest possible price that you could.
mhm.
You know, newsprint, black and white if you had to, whatever it takes. And then on the high end, you would have like a high quality, very nicely bound book with all sorts of extras and sketches and
Yeah.
maybe part of the script, you know, and all that kind of stuff. Because I could see like if you're doing the comic circuit, you know, people might not want to spend $25
Yeah.
on that 150 page book. But if you have issues, like if you have a floppy there, um, whether it's like a normal 20 page or maybe you want to go a little more and do like 60 page, so it's at least like 3 issues worth,
Mhm.
um, and you can do it for relatively cheap. Like if people go to conventions, they want to come back with souvenirs. You know,
Oh
they
yeah.
want to spend some money, and if your thing is relatively inexpensive, you know, they're just going to drop that cash.
Yeah, that's a great point. That was kind of why I was hoping, you know, going for that manga edition, and
Hmm.
it sucked that I couldn't get it to that $5 mark.
Yeah.
Because like it's 180 pages, it's in black and white, and you know, it's in that digest size, so it's much smaller. It's like a VHS tape, dating myself there, but and like I don't know, that was kind of my, if you don't want to go for like the super premium full color whatever, here's the the fast, cheap, and easy version. Here's the McDonald's, here's the and that's kind of what I'm trying to do also with the with the retail versions of the books, because after the crowdfunding, after everybody gets fulfilled first, make sure everybody gets the white glove treatment, everybody gets they're backing, they took a chance on my product. I'm going to give them everything that they that was promised, and it's got to be a white glove experience. But I basically, after everybody's fulfilled, I throw it on Amazon at a slightly reduced rate, but the quality takes a little bit of a hit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fine. Like I said, high low. If people buy the low, and they say, "Oh, I like this. I like the story. I like the art. I wish there were a better version." Well, here you go. Then they get all the bells and whistles.
Yeah, and my ultimate goal, my dream, if I can achieve this, is by the time I get to the 10th book, there will be the trade paperback tome of trade paperback tomes. This would be every story included in one gargantuan, like, here's your Webster's dictionary, plump, and I know that's kind of a niche, because a lot of people, they don't want to spend that much money on a big book, but like, if you get like the beefy book, like, you're going to get like the best of the best, I'm hopefully going to try the leather bound and whatever else I can pull off,
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I wonder if it's possible to get that all together. There's a guy, Rob, who he does gaming books, and he did this series, Gods of the Forgotten North, and like he did a three-part series, and each book was about 500 pages. And I was talking to him. I had him on when he was doing number 2, and he's like, "Yeah, when number 3 comes out, I want to get it all bound into one." Like a big 1,500 page edition. And so I had him on when he was doing number 3, and I asked him, and he's like, yeah, nobody could do that.
Yeah.
It was a logistical problem.
Yeah. Well, I guessed out or estimated out what the page count was. I looked at companies like Print Ninja, and they were able to do it, but there's no way that I would ever do it through them at that price, because I want to make a profit, but at the same time, I wouldn't charge that to customers. Like, I'd be like, dude, nobody's paying that for a book. Like, it was like $100. I'm like, yeah, no, that's not happening.
Yeah, I mean, you would already have to have some popularity to get like the deluxe super edition type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, not to get too political, but kind of curious as to your thinking. So you did mention Print Ninja, which I believe is in China.
Well, they have an American
oh, that's right.
Yeah. Now they do.
Or,
yeah. I got the email because I was like, I know this sounds terrible, but like a lot of indie creators did a lot of stuff in China. They do a lot of business in China. They get a lot of better opportunities as well. I was not interested in that. I want to be able to look the people in the face who handle my book.
I can definitely understand that. Do you think, due to all these tariffs and maybe new regulations, do you think we'll see a lot more printing come back to, I was going to say North America originally, and it's like, well, we better not count Canada in there now. Do you think like, I don't know, are there going to be more Peter Simettis who are going to build smaller printing companies that really cater to to people doing smaller print runs, or more art print runs, as opposed to just corporate work?
I really hope so. When I worked for the newspaper back in the 2000s, the whole thing was print is dead. Like we had to subsidize our newspaper with a lot of commercial jobs. That's how I got my experience laying out books and doing pre-press work. And I saw we had fewer and fewer customers, and I was like, is it the quality of our books? Like, what is it? And it's just like, no, they're all doing digital now. They're going to the Amazon Kindle, or they're going to some other, like, tablet format or whatever, and it's like, oh man. And that was
Yeah.
before tablets really took off, you know. But
Yeah.
like, we are a niche, but
Mhm.
or I should say, like, physical books are a niche. But if they're popular enough, like if they present enough value, clearly there is still demand for it, because my 19-year-old nephew has a larger manga library than me. It's like, you know, those are all physical books. That costs, you know, somebody had to print those.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm just wondering, you know, even talking about the popularity, like I see more backlash against Kindles these days.
Oh
And I'm
yeah.
not saying it's going to go away, especially due to the low cost,
Mm.
but there's a lot of digital services where now it's become very clear you don't actually own the books that you thought you bought.
Yeah,
Um,
dude, they do that in video games. That pisses me
yep.
off. Yeah, well, if it's any consolation, when like, you could do this right now. If you go to the website and you check out one of the previews of the book, you can just download the PDF. Like, you own that. Like, I have no control over what you do with that PDF afterwards.
Mhm.
So I'm a firm believer that if you buy something from me, you're not renting it.
Ah, yeah, that was my other question is, you know, is there anything that we could do about getting our stuff out of the US? So I did my a Kickstarter last year for my campaign guide,
Mhm.
and well, I got contacted from a lot of people overseas, and they're like, "Yeah, we'd really love to buy your thing, but so I had the campaign guide, and then I had a bunch of extra modules that went with it. And the
Mhm.
modules were only available if you bought the print edition of the campaign guide.
Oh.
And they were like, "Yeah, you know, the problem is by the time that thing gets to my country, it's like between 120 and $150." And like, I just can't justify spending that kind of money, even though I think it looks cool. It's like,
This is
oh,
why I'm a firm supporter of those tariffs. I have a friend in Australia that wanted to buy my book off of Amazon.
hmm
Um, $8 or $9 on Amazon. Okay. After all the BS, all the VATs, all the import tariffs, and all this crap in Australia, that $9 book turned into about $27.
yikes.
You know, actually, I think it went up to $32 when he did like the shipping and everything. So it was like, you know, a considerably, almost 4 times, you know, the cost of the book. And that, I think, is why those tariffs were necessary, because we are independent, you know, small businesses in America, and we have a snowball's chance in hell of doing business overseas when we are hit with those types of you know, fees and tariffs and stuff. Whereas somebody like China can literally just, you know, I have a friend in Canada who's like, it's easier to order something from China, or cheaper to order
Yep.
something and have it delivered from China, than it is to mail an empty envelope just across the street.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's a problem. I mean, you know, we as American creators, we need to be able to have an international market, or we're at a major disadvantage.
Yeah. Yeah, that's no, I totally agree with you. And there, to some extent, I always look at culture
Mhm.
like throwing a rock in a pond, and the bigger the rock, the bigger the ripples, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, we used to be like a boulder that just went in there and completely dominated everything in that pond.
Oh yeah.
But these days, there's plenty of other rocks being thrown into this pond, and you know, we're now down to one that's like the size of a head as opposed
Yeah.
to a boulder.
Yeah.
And and you know, when you're not able to get your culture out there, whether you know stuff like that can be used for good or for evil, but
Mhm.
other people in the world don't have the opportunity to know you and how you think and understand you, and then you know, evaluate whether or not they agree or disagree with your philosophies, your way of life, or whatnot. So I definitely see us, well, first of all, having crap being put out, you know, through Hollywood, not
Mm.
being able to get smaller uh, games and books and everything out into the world. It's a big problem, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's like, other than agriculture, the United States' biggest export was culture. Like, you
Mhm.
remember, like, you look at all these old movies and like the World War II ones. I love the Mickey Mouse. Yeah, like everybody knew who Mickey Mouse was. Everybody knew, Hollywood. They would name these, these actors and actresses and stuff. And now we had a Korean movie come into the United States and eat our lunch.
Yes.
Remember, I think it was Parasite or whatever, came in and just
Yeah.
obliterated the domestic box office.
Well, not only that, go look at Netflix. Like, if you told me in 2000 that like half the shows that are going to come on Netflix are made in Korea, I would
Yeah.
say you're nuts. And a lot of them are good. I
Yeah.
was just watching what's it called? Devil's Plan with my wife
Mhm.
before I came here. I mean, I don't know why American shows can't be like that.
Well, I mean, the paranoia side of me is saying that it was deliberate deconstruction. I mean, if you ever, I mean, you're what was it, Guangxi or something? I can't remember the correct term for it, but it's, let's just say there's a business strategy where
Mhm.
sparring partners, you learn from them, and then once you've obtained all you need to learn from them, then you sabotage them, cripple them, and then basically get them to, leave the business. And
Yeah,
when
yeah,
you see large companies like Tencent holding, huge portions of stock in
yeah.
Western companies, and then you look at these Western companies like, the woke stuff. I hate using the buzzwords, but like the unwatchable and the unsellable stuff.
Yeah.
Like it seems really convenient, or that the companies that these foreign companies hold all these shares in are doing this, and it's like, they have leverage. Like they sit in on board meetings and say, yeah, this is what we're going to do. So
Yeah, for sure.
maybe I'm
Yeah.
wrong, though. I hope I'm wrong.
No, I mean, the only thing I would sort of disagree with is that I don't think the problem is the woke stuff its entirety.
Mm,
The woke stuff is just a smokescreen for poor writing
yeah.
and poor cinematography. And, you know, like things were going downhill before that was the thing. But then it was like, oh, well, you can't criticize us because we love women or we love this religion or this sexual orientation or whatever.
Yeah.
That was the smokescreen for saying like, well, why does this thing suck so hard?
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely feels like cultural vandalism too, where
Yes.
like what they did to, like the Rings of Power there on Amazon, like where
Oof.
they're adapting the Silmarillion, and it's like, okay, I've read that stuff. I read bits and pieces. I know, and I see what they did to it, and it's like, yeah, take out all the blackwashing and the race politics and all that stuff, and just get to the storytelling, and it's just a bad story, and it's not even reflective of the Silmarillion.
Yeah. I mean, it's uh I don't know. A lot of the stuff you don't even know what to say. And the worst part is, like, I don't know if you've given Andor a chance, um, but I freaking love that show. It's amazing. It's like just so well written. It's what TV used to be.
Mm,
And the problem is, like, it's because things that have come before it for the last 10 years have been so bad.
yeah,
Nobody wants to give it a chance, I think.
I heard the same thing about the Thunderbolts or the new Avengers movie. People are like, I
Uh,
enjoyed it, and I'm like, yeah, I don't care. I'm not going
yeah.
to see it.
I watched. I was going to do a review. It's okay.
Uh-uh.
It
Yeah.
seems good in comparison to like most of the movies recently,
Yeah.
but that doesn't make it a good movie.
No, no. Yeah. Well, it's better than getting kicked in the crotch. Well, that's not
Yeah,
so
yeah,
tough.
exactly. Getting kicked
Yeah.
in the knee instead.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. When I worked, like, dude, one of the like, video games I worked on was it had a crossover with a TV show. It was
Hmm.
called Defiance. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It was on the Sci-Fi
Ooh,
Channel for a while.
sounds familiar. I very rarely had cable though.
Oh yeah, well, don't worry, you didn't miss much. um, what really sucked was I found that a lot of and I can't dump on the writers of the show. I really can't, because I didn't meet them. I don't know, but I was very bored with the show, the premise, the way that it was executed, and when we were working on the game, we had writers that were very disorganized, and that maybe that's that maybe that makes me anal retentive. I don't know, OCD, whatever, but like I actually took it upon myself to make a master wiki with all of the lore notes, all of the stuff. I even made these stupid battle cards for the designers that, it showed the monster concept art on one side and you flip it over and it's got all their stats and stuff, so that designers knew they're, because nobody was like, well, what kind of monsters do we have? Like, what can do what? And it's like, oh, well, here's a card, a pack of cards, and you can, use them however you want. But they at least tell you, how you can plan your encounters with them. And, I did all that and stuff. And we ended up getting this writer on board who was very, I don't care. I'm not going to drop his name or anything, but like very millennial.
Yeah.
And I have found that, and I'm not trying to, the old, the way the boomers, oh, those kids, damn them. But I found that when a lot of millennials, like they do the winking at the camera, the hipster snark and all this stuff. And it kind of wore out its welcome when Joss Whedon left. And unfortunately, they're still doing it. And it's like they defeat gravity of a scene by just following it up with like a completely like just out of place joke, or like, something where it's like you're not allowed to feel genuine emotions because everything is just ironic now. And when you couple that with the fact that, look at like, I keep bringing up Tolkien, but like, the Lord of the Rings were born in the trenches of World War I. The guy was living in hell. He had life experience. Hemingway sailed across the ocean. Like there's actually experience. Life experience creates good stories. When you're ripping, like when your story is basically aping off of existing media, you're not telling like a relatable story. You're just copying what you saw on TV. Like it's a Xerox of a Xerox. It's not. And I find that that's where a lot of like the millennial writing kind of loses me.
Yes. No, I definitely agree. And like, if you look at comics, a lot of the early writers of comics, they fought either in World War I or World War II, especially, all those Silver Age guys.
Oh yeah.
And they had like, or you get a guy like Larry Hama who fought in Vietnam and would carry an Uzi around New York in the 1980s, which, I don't know, that might not be bad advice for these days either.
I was going to say that's a good survival tactic.
But yeah, I mean, if I ever had to give tips to, someone who's like, oh, I want to be, how do I write this or that? Like, go do something, go out of your comfort zone, at least go visit a culture that is very different from your own.
Oh yeah.
Try to do what you can to have to live life from a different point of view for a while, so you get a much better view of what your normal life actually is.
Yeah. That's a great point. Get life experience.
Yep.
And yeah, I honestly, like the way that like the whole globalist stuff's going, like I feel bad for future generations that won't have that ability to go visit other cultures, or at least like, because like when I lived in Japan, like I felt ashamed that I couldn't speak Japanese as fluently as I really should have. I went in there, I tried my best, and it was embarrassing at times. Who was your teacher? Your teacher, asshole. Because like how in Japanese language there's the friendly, there's formal, and then there's female. Well, apparently I was speaking in female sometimes, and it's like, you might want to say it differently. I'm like, oh, okay, what did I do wrong? But just being able to do that, being able to get out of your familiar territory and get out into seeing other people's perspectives, it appreciates where you come from, and it also gives you a better perspective on how other people think. Not everybody thinks like us. Everybody has their own way of thinking.
Yeah, for sure. It's like What kind of a story? What kind of a romance story would you get from someone who's never dated? You know?
Yeah. Ask George Lucas. I mean, the only girls he's ever talked to are the ones he gave his credit card number to first. You know.
Well, I mean, so George Lucas, he was married.
Oh yeah,
His
yeah.
wife saved Star Wars.
Amen.
Somehow,
Yep.
somehow he managed to get a woman before he was famous. And I don't know. Now he's got all the money in the world. So
Yeah, yeah, but it's yeah, it's like don't what is it? Go with what you know. Like if
yeah,
you're not a romantic person and you've never had experience with that, you're probably not going to have a romantic or a successfully written book that's based on romance. And that's kind of why I say I cheated with the Infinitale stuff, is because it was more than just my perspective. I literally had players act out or play out these scenes, and they were clearly from different backgrounds than me.
mhm.
There's a lot of trauma, actually. A lot of bad stuff happened to these kids, and it was kind of heartbreaking hearing some of the stuff. Some of it was happening underneath my nose. Like I was there and I didn't even know it.
Ooh.
And and it kind of comes out, I think in the way their characters are acting. It's like, wow, that's pretty deep for a 10-year-old. It's like, yeah, if you knew what that 10-year-old went through.
Yeah, yeah. So getting back to Infinitale Chronicles: The War of the Tree #2. So when is the campaign going live?
Oh yeah. So Friday, May 23rd on Michael Bancroft's channel. I
Oh,
as
nice.
far as yeah, dude, I was super stoked when he said, "Yeah, man, let's do this." I don't know the exact time. I'll have to. I believe it's like 8:30 ish. But I could be wrong. Once I get the exact time, I'll make a post on it. And like I have a little schedule calendar on the website
Mhm.
that shows all like all the people, like all the like you're on there. But says, hey, these are the people I'm chatting with. Go check them out. So
Yeah, so anyone who is watching on YouTube, just take a look at the chat. The Indiegogo pay, what do you call it? Pre-launch page is pinned to the top of the chat. Should also be in the description to the video. If you are watching on Rumble or X, hey, go take a look. Uh, for some reason, Rumble doesn't like my descriptions anymore, but
oh,
Indiegogo, you can search it.
man.
Um, and so, is it a 30-day or 60-day campaign?
I'm hoping to do a 30-day campaign, but judging like how difficult it's been to kind of get the word out, I might extend it to another 30 days for that
Makes
60-day
sense.
thing. I won't be going into in demand. I'll be going straight into the retail after I fulfill everything.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that was kind of my next question is when do you expect to start shipping books?
All right, so this one, so I've been sitting on a lot of these books for about a year now. Because I went to the comic convention back in September of last year, and I didn't. I mean, I sold a few here and there, but I didn't do as well as I thought I would. So I've got a bunch of books sitting here, and I'm planning on getting that first shipment out as soon as possible. So I ship chronologically as well. So if you back first come first serve, you're getting your book sooner. Um, and yeah, I'm then I'll make an order for however many books I need after that, and then that second wave will be contingent upon how long it takes for me to get it back from the printers.
Okay, very cool. And so if someone happens to see this tonight and says, "Hey, that sounds kind of cool," will you also have book one available?
So book one is available on Amazon right now, but on the campaign, we will have some legacy books. We do have some leftover variant cover books. The original standard edition cover sold out. Like I'm not reprinting it. It just doesn't exist anymore.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, if you'd like, I can give you a really quick and quick tour of the or preview of the campaign.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sweet. All right. Let me see if I can. Oops, wrong control. All right. So, see if I can do this.
Should be H to share the screen.
Oh! I was just gonna do this.
Oh, oh, there we go. All
Yeah.
right. Can I? Nope, not that way. Not that way. How about nope, nope, not that way. Wait a minute. Hang on. Swap it. Hey, there we go. Okay.
Woohoo! All right, so this is just the preview of the campaign. So when it goes live, it might look a little different, but this is what I'm planning to have. So it'll show some of the cool stuff that I have in store. What it's not going to show is when you join the mailing list, you'll get links to secret perks. For some reason I can't show the secret perks on here, but there are secret perks, including perks that have some discounts applied to them, so you can get books for cheaper if you want. If you all you got to do is get that mailing list sign up. But what we're basically seeing here is hold on. So this is the intended merchandise. So we got standard edition, the alternate art edition, the manga edition, some really cool trading cards, this filament or nylon glow in the dark, what they call a water leaper. I can't even begin to pronounce the Welsh version of this creature, but it's from Welsh folklore. And then one of our heroes, and it's a paint kit. Like you'll get all the, it'll be unpainted, but it'll be pre-primed, and it'll come in a nice little painter's guide, the paints, everything you need to paint this thing. And then some magnets. You get 7 magnets for set 1, and they're all done in 16-bit sprites by an artist on Twitter called Nicotine Fist. And since there's been a lot of inspiration from the old 16-bit era games like Shining Force and stuff, the sprites here are done in that style. So I'm really stoked to get those out. And then we get the double-sided poster here, where we've got the front side has this really cool pic by Clark Ocliza, who depicting a kind of a pivotal scene in book 2. And then on the back, it's got all of the trading card art for the Act 1 trading cards.
Nice.
And then a canvas wall map. So you get it nice folded here. And then on the back, it talks about all the sovereignties and stuff and their heraldry. And then here we can see kind of the, nice little, it's not going to be creased or anything because it's canvas. You can just iron it out essentially. So there's that. And then early bird bonuses, the first 10 backers will get a randomly selected, I think it's about 3.5, 4-inch tall resin figurine with an NFC chip in its base. And the NFC chip will link to a little movie about the character. And basically these, I didn't like how fragile they were, so I didn't want to sell them. I thought, I already made them, so I can give them out as free kind of bonuses for that, if you really take the initiative on Bancroft Stream and jump in and be one of the first 10 backers, you can get your hands on one of these. But I wasn't happy with the durability of them with the resin, so I figured I'd just give them away instead. And then
there you go.
If you're on the first 7 days of the campaign, you can get this nice 5x7 hollow foil card. This was done so during Dave Brink's Perfect 10. I can't remember if it was number 4 or number 5. He had a one of the perks where you could get Pau Rodrix, his artist, to do a sketch. So I ended up doing that, and Pau did a sketch here of Queen Aisling, and I ended up coloring it, and then I used the background from the first trading card of the Forbidden City from the first story. So my coloring, Pau's illustration, and Zed's painting in the back make up that
Very
card.
Cool.
And then Y3 editions. So we've got, here's where I explain basically inside of your book 2, you'll get either this cover or this cover about halfway through the book, and it will be the book 2.5 edition, bringing it from the original planned 60 pages to 120 pages. So yeah, the pacing from my proofreader said it was a hell of a lot better. So that hopefully that'll get exciting. And then just like on our website, if you want to see some interior art here of what's on the standard edition, you just click the button and voila, you get the nice little preview of book 1. You can do the same, and you can also download this, by the way. You can do the same with the alternate art edition as well. Just click the button, brings you right in, and you can get the preview of art edition looks like. And again, going down to the third book, the big beefy boy here, the 180 page black and white manga edition. And as you can see, it's manga, so it's read right to left. It says
Ooh.
Muko no Tyson, or the War of the Trees.
Mm-hmm.
And we go, and boom, the black and white version. It's a
Nice.
little bit of chapter 2. So yeah, yeah, and those are, you can already check all those out on our website, so you don't necessarily need to see them here on the campaign page. But just to go on everything else, we got the bundles here. If you back the bundle, you get both the alternate art and the standard together in this nice little slipcase with Clark Oakley's art on it. And then we got, this was a popular bundle, so we brought it back on the book 1 campaign, where we bundled in the trading cards with the book. So, you know, you get a little bit of a deal. I think it takes a little bit off. In fact, if you look through the perks, I think it says, where is it? Yeah, you get 6% off. So, woohoo! And then the ultimate bundle, where you get a nice little store folio, you know, all the books, the posters, the magnets, you name it. And then your overview of the add-ons, so we get a little closer detail here. You get the water leaper.
Cool.
Yeah, this thing was fun, man. Like, I had all these like sitting on my printer at night, and like the whole room lit up. These things really glow, and that worries me. And then here's the paint kit for Nessa, who is one of the featured characters here. And as you can see in the little thumbnail here, you get all the paints, you know, the mixing thing, the brush, the palette, or, you know, and the little paint guide. Teach you how to paint all the different sections of her and how to mix each part. And then the canvas wall map. Obviously, this is a kind of a mock-up of it. The legit one is done on canvas. Looks really great in a frame. And then here are the collectible cards. And one of the things, if you buy it in that bundled edition, you get a possibility of an 11th card. One of these is randomly in your in that pack, guaranteed. They're called lucky cards, and they're guaranteed at least one of these when you buy the book and card bundle. So if you buy these together, you're guaranteed to get at least one of these. Where if you don't, you just get the standard packs. You might not get any of these cards. You just get the standard 10 here, which, I mean, isn't bad, but, you know, like, more is always better. So, you know, I figured that would be a good incentive.
You know, I had a question about that manga edition. I thought it was just like manga sized. I didn't realize you went through the trouble to make it read from right to left. So, have you thought about getting it translated and trying to sell it to Japanese audiences?
Yes, that I would love to get Jumoko no Tyson in Japanese. I'm sure they would help me correct my grammar with the onomatopoeia. I'm fairly certain the onomatopoeia is spot on. You know, I had a Japanese coworker say, "Yeah, that's what that means. Yeah, that's what that means." But yeah, I would love to get this in. I would love to get this in like these in French and English. Oh, I'm sorry, in Spanish, auf Deutsch, you know, and Japanese. You know, the more languages I could get it in, the kind of the broader the market, you know, like, and I think there would be a lot of ROI there, because when I did the survey off of book 1, I had a lot of European. I would say it was probably a little under 50% of my backers were from Europe, and they weren't from, you know, countries where their lingua franca was English. So, you know, it's like, yeah, let's get this book in, you know, en français, or, you know, en espagnol, or auf Deutsch or something, and then, you know, get the Japanese version of a manga. You know, I mean, I have a feeling though, you know, like, I have my nephew, he read it and he's like, I don't know why you call it a manga. It's not really manga, you know. It's just, you know, because, you know, the weeb purists. But
yeah,
you know, I don't know.
I don't know. I could see something like this potentially selling well over there. Um, One of the things that I don't like about a lot of Japanese manga these days is like it's become too formulaic,
Mm.
where it's like everything basically has to exist off of like Dungeons and Dragons type rules,
Yeah.
and like it's, oh well, this spell is this level spell, and it's like, ugh. So I could see something that's very familiar but yet different. I could see that maybe being of interest over there.
Yeah. Yeah. I would love to, expand the audience as broad as possible. And
Yeah.
if it gets love in Japan, then yeah, man, I'll pay for the
Well,
translator.
plus it looks, it looks like you've already done 75% of the work. Reorienting it and having it all black and white.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like here's the legit version. So we've got book one here. We've got the table of contents with all the chapters. And here's my favorite part. So if you're a Baka Gaijin and you buy this book and you're like, what the hell? This is a weird front cover. Uh, you open it up and the first thing you see is you're reading the wrong way. Mokaidane. Basically it's Ashling explaining how manga reads from right to left. I think you need to flip the book over. So, boom.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's this version also has a few additions because this was based on the second printing of the book, not the first. There's some slight changes to things. That there's added pages and added bits of dialogue to kind of flesh out some things that I got from feedback post backing of book one. People are like, this could be expanded upon, or you should be explaining this a little better. But yeah, it's hopefully this one, hopefully this one's a hit.
Hopefully. I mean, I do think too that there is, how would you say, like I think once you start getting multiple books out,
Yeah.
people trust, like people don't want to get invested in a story that's that they're not going to get the end to. So I think once you get a few books out, you start to get more and more interest
Yeah.
from people who read it before, and then people see like, oh well, there's already like 300 pages worth of material, so I'll give it a go.
Yeah, yeah, and oh, speaking of which, so is it? Let's see, is it this one? No, that's the website. Okay, so here is the preview book that I'm hoping to get as part of a stretch goal. So if I go back to the site here and I scroll all the way down here, and we go to stretch goals. If I can get $3,000 worth of funding,
Hmm.
then I can provide this for free of charge to people who backed physical books. And basically, this is the first chapter of book three, and it's done by Miriam Nova. And yeah, it's done in her style, and we get, obviously this will be fixed, but we get a kind of the first 36 pages of book three.
Nice.
So yeah, a little bit of violence in there, but yeah. So yeah, I mean I definitely want to provide as much content as possible to backers, and again, because this is the like the backer edition, I gotta throw in as many bells and whistles as possible to incentivize support that way, because otherwise, why would you want to back it when you can just hold out if it succeeds and just get the retail version, and the reason for that is that the backed edition or the crowdfunding edition comes with some cooler stuff, like for
Mhm.
example, well, that's the store folio that is in the ultimate edition, but the digital perks. So here's the first printing. This was the Michelle Hefner cover, or variant A, that was released on the first campaign. Here's the Genzo Man cover from that same book one, and then I have a few of these posters left over, and again another double-sided poster. It's 19 by 27, so it's pretty big. And then The first series of trading cards. I only have like 10 of these cards left, and I'm not going to reprint them. So it's, get them while you can. And again, they're not available in the retail edition. So it's like, once the crowdfunding stuff, if it succeeds, then it goes right into retail, and then the retail edition has a different cover, and it doesn't have the interior cover printing because Amazon doesn't do that. And I can't personally ship it in one of these cool war chest boxes like I did in the first campaign. The second campaign, we get these fire-based ones. The first campaign had a book. I actually shipped the first campaign in where is it? Let's see if I can. I think I have it. Yeah, merchandise. Here we are. So this is what the first campaign's books were shipped in. Nice little shrunk wrapped. Looks like the Book of Dragons, which is one of the props or one of the MacGuffins in the first book. And now we've got the war chest, which has got that cool picture that it was done by Kevin Sharp and colored by Steve Cannon. So I don't know. I really love that one. You open it up and you actually see the full scene in there.
Nice.
And then those are the stretch goals. So hopefully, you get a cool bookmark, double-sided bookmark. It's got the spot UV where all the little runic letters are all shiny and stuff, and the rest of it is kind of a satin finish. And you can use it like the "Be sure to drink your Ovaltine" translator, because there's sections in our book where characters don't speak. Where is it? See, they actually they're not speaking. They're not speaking English. And our characters can't understand them. But if you got that nice little decoder ring, you can make, be sure to drink your Ovaltine. The thing is you don't need it. Like, you can get the story without it. It's kind of like you don't need to translate what R2-D2 is saying to C-3PO, but it would be nice if you could. And that's what the bookmark will do. There's also a card from Series 1. If I go back up here to Series 1, this one right here has the language translation on it, and then of course at the back of the book I provide the translation. So in case you're curious,
cool.
And you don't want to get the bonus stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much what I'm hoping will be shown on Bancrofts on the 23rd.
All right.
Seeing if people want anything on it.
And if anyone doesn't know, go look up Michael Bancroft. He's got a great show, introduces a lot of new comics, a lot of great art. Go check him out. Go check out Infinitales, issue number 2 on Bancroft's channel on May 23rd. Any last things we should know before we part ways for the evening?
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on, man. I had a blast. Like it's great to talk about stuff to people that, like just to get it out there. Cause I mean, I'm my own cheerleader. I'm like hyping myself up, and it's like, I don't know, man. I want to see what other people think of this.
Yeah, it looks pretty interesting. So anyone who's interested in original fantasy stories, go check this out. It might be your cup of tea.
Yeah.
All right. So quick announcement for tomorrow. Peter Samedi was supposed to be here. He had to cancel. He will be here next Wednesday, the 21st at 9 p.m. And this weekend, this Saturday, the Nerd Council of Doom assembles again. We're going to have a lot of fun topics currently in development, and we will be talking about the Great Underground Online Gaming Convention, also happening on the weekend of May 23rd. So come check us out on @thenerdcouncilofdoom.com, and I'll probably also simultaneously stream it on this channel too. So everyone, if you could like this and subscribe, and I will see y'all on Saturday. Chris, thanks for coming.